Canada and Student Direct Stream SDS for study visas. What you need to know. Hey guys! So, if you've been planning to study in Canada, or if you're just interested in how things work with student visas, you might have heard some big news recently. Yeah, Canada has decided to end the Student Direct Stream, or SDS, for certain countries. And I know, it sounds a bit confusing, right? But don't worry, I'm here to break it down for you, step by step, so you know exactly what this means and how it could affect students who are hoping to get their study visas quickly. Okay, so let's start with the basics. What exactly was the SDS program in the first place? What was the SDS program? The SDS was a special initiative introduced by the Canadian government a few years ago. Its goal was to speed up the process for international students applying for study permits. The program was aimed at students from specific countries. Countries with a large number of applicants, like India, China, the Philippines, Vietnam, and a few others. Now, if you were applying for a study visa through SDS, it meant that your application could be processed much faster than regular study visa applications. And I mean, we're talking about weeks, not months, which is a huge difference, right? Yeah. So the idea was to make it easier for qualified students to get their study permits quickly. But of course, there were certain requirements you had to meet in order to apply under SDS. For example, you had to show that you had high proficiency in English or French, provide proof of sufficient financial support, and prove that you had been accepted into a designated learning institution, DLI, in Canada. I see. So, if you checked all those boxes, you got to use the SDS to get your visa process faster. But now, well, things have changed. Why did Canada end the SDS program? So, you're probably asking, why would Canada get rid of a program that helps speed up things for students? Well, that's a really good question, and the answer has to do with a few factors. First of all, the Canadian government has been talking about simplifying the visa application process in general, right? They want to make things easier and more efficient, not just for students, but for everyone applying for visas, including workers and immigrants. By ending the SDS program, they're trying to streamline things, so there's no longer a need for special programs for certain countries. Instead, they're aiming for a unified system where all students, regardless of where they come from, can apply under the same set of rules and standards. Okay, but that's not all. The government also mentioned that this change was part of a broader review of Canada's immigration policies. As the number of international students in Canada has been growing rapidly, they've been trying to find ways to make the process smoother for everyone. So, the SDS program, which had specific eligibility criteria, was seen as a bit of a bottleneck. If you didn't meet all the requirements for the SDS, you could end up waiting longer for your study permit. So, by ending SDS, the idea is that all students will now be processed through the same system, making the process more consistent across the board. How does this affect students who are using SDS? Right, so, if you are already in the middle of your application for a study permit under the SDS, what happens now? Well, don't worry too much, because if you had already submitted your application before the end of the SDS program, your application should still be processed as usual. So, if you were lucky enough to have your application already in the system, you don't have to panic about it being canceled or rejected. However, if you haven't applied yet, then things are a bit different. Now, without the SDS option, you'll be going through the regular study permit application process. And unfortunately, this could take longer. Yeah, the regular process doesn't have the same fast tracking that SDS offered. You might now be looking at a few extra weeks or even months of waiting. This could be a problem if you were hoping to start your study soon, right? The regular process requires a lot more documentation and review, so it's not as fast as the SDS. What will the application process be like now? Okay, let's break down what the regular process for a study permit looks like, because now it's going to be your go-to route. Basically, the process involves gathering all of your documents, things like your acceptance letter from a Canadian institution, proof of funds to show that you can support yourself while studying, and your language proficiency results. If you're from a country where English or French isn't the main language, you might need to provide proof of your language skills by taking a test like the IELTS or the TOEFL. Once you've got everything together, you'll submit your application, either online or at a visa application center, VAC, depending on where you're applying from. I know this might sound a little overwhelming, but the truth is, the process isn't too complicated. It just takes time. That's the thing. The biggest change now is that you'll probably need to plan further ahead and be prepared for the possibility of longer wait times. Right. So make sure to check the Canadian Immigration website for the most up-to-date information on document requirements and processing times. Is there any good news in this for students? Okay, I'm not going to lie, it might sound like the end of SDS is all bad news. But I want to point out that there might actually be some benefits here, too. Yeah, I know. It's hard to see the upside at first, but hear me out. One of the main reasons Canada decided to eliminate SDS is to make the system more fair and accessible. Before, students from countries like India or China who could qualify for SDS had an easier time getting their visas, while students from other countries didn't get the same fast processing. Now, with this change, everyone, regardless of which country you're from, will be treated the same way. I see. So in the long run, this could make things more equal for everyone. Plus, Canada has been trying to improve the visa application experience overall, so there's hope that the overall process will get faster and more streamlined over time. Also, many Canadian institutions still have their own support systems for international students. For example, some schools may help you navigate the visa process, offer extra services for applying, or even have special programs to help with things like housing and settling in Canada. What are the alternatives to SDS now? So, if you were hoping to use SDS but it's no longer an option, what can you do? Well, like I mentioned, you'll need to go through the regular study permit process. But beyond that, there's also a couple of alternative pathways that might help you if you're looking for a faster way to get into Canada. For example, there are specific provincial nominee programs, PNPs, and post-graduation work permits that may help students stay in Canada after they finish their studies. Some provinces have unique programs for international students, which could provide quicker pathways to permanent residence if that's something you're interested in later on. And if you're worried about the long wait times for your study permit, some students might consider applying for a study permit extension once they're already in Canada, or they might explore other options like applying for a work visa while studying, which could speed up the process of getting approved for your stay. Conclusion: what should students do now? So yeah, to sum it up, the end of the SDS program definitely changes things for international students who are hoping for quicker processing times. Now, the application process will go back to the regular study permit route, which means it may take longer and you might need more documentation. But there's still plenty of opportunity to study in Canada, and Canada is still one of the most popular destinations for international students. If you're planning to apply, my advice would be to stay informed about the updated requirements and start your application as early as possible. Make sure to gather all the necessary documents, double-check everything, and maybe even consult with an immigration expert or your school's international student office if you're unsure about the process. Right? That's all for now, folks. Hopefully, this helps clear things up and gives you a better idea of what to expect moving forward. If you're still excited about studying in Canada, don't let this news discourage you. There are plenty of ways to make it work, and with the right preparation, you'll be on your way to studying in one of the best countries in the world. All right, guys, take care and good luck with your applications. See you next time.
Thanks for watching our video. Please hit the button and subscribe the channel.